So the nWo Wolfpack, the red and black version of the nWo, the more hip and contemporary group that was created due to infighting within the nWo. Either you loved the Wolfpack or you just didn't care. Looking back now, it's kind of weird that we accepted these middle-aged dudes trying to act like gangster rappers, wearing baggy clothes and entering the ring to hip-hop music. But it was a different time, a different place, and hey, it's wrestling, anything can work. So how did the Wolfpack come to be? Scott Hall was the man who referred to himself, Syxx, and Kevin Nash as the Wolfpack during 1997. The best way to compare this would probably be how the Elite were members within the Bullet Club faction at one point. In 1997 there was no official red and black Wolfpack, but Nash, Hall and Syxx still referred to themselves as such. Check out the episode of Nitro on the 28th of April 1997 to see the first time Scott Hall called the trio the Wolfpack. Towards the end of 1997, the huge Sting and Hollywood Hogan build would be seeing its payoff when the pair met in the ring at Starrcade 1997. Sting left Starrcade 97 as the WCW champion, but had to vacate the title due to the controversy surrounding the win. Hulk Hogan would get another shot at the Stinger, and this is when the problems began happening within the nWo. Before moving forward, you have to remember throughout this video that the nWo was a huge faction. It was actually way too big. What started off as Nash, Hall and Hogan grew into a huge gang in a matter of months. Of course, with this many nWo members, some would get irritated, both on screen and off screen, that they weren't getting their proper time to shine. One of those members was Macho Man Randy Savage. At Super Brawl 8, Hulk Hogan lost to Sting in a match for the vacated WCW World Heavyweight Championship and was attacked by Macho Man Randy Savage late in the match. After Super Brawl, Savage then made his intentions clear and declared that he no longer needed the nWo's help to win matches. He also said that Hulk Hogan had dropped the ball in reclaiming the WCW title and he was going to go after Sting to try and bring the championship back to the New World Order. Meanwhile, Sean Waltman, who had been out injured since October of 1997, was released from his contract and sent to rehab. Shortly thereafter, his clique buddy Scott Hall was removed from television. This all led to a confrontation between Kevin Nash, Eric Bischoff and Hogan on the March 26th episode of Thunder, when Hulk Hogan famously said that Syxx couldn't cut the mustard. Syxx then returned to the WWF 4 days later as X-Pac and returned the favour, saying that if Hall and Nash were able to do so, they would be joining Waltman in the WWF and in DX. Eric Bischoff replied to X-Pac on Nitro, simply saying, "Bite me." With all this going on, Kevin Nash also noticed that Hulk Hogan was all about himself and not about the greater good of the nWo. On top of this, he was not happy with how his friend Syxx was treated by Eric Bischoff. With this in mind, Nash and Hogan were still nWo teammates and they had a big match coming up where they would need to put their differences aside. They were successful in doing so at Spring Stampede, where Hogan and Nash defeated Roddy Piper and the Giant, but after the match, Hogan orchestrated a beatdown on his tag partner. Later in the night, Kevin helped Macho Man Randy Savage defeat Sting, earning Savage the win, which in turn made Randy Savage the new WCW champion. Hogan came out following the match, not pleased at all, while arguing that Savage had his title. Hogan and the Disciple then attacked Nash and Savage to close out the show. Hogan regained the WCW title the next night on Nitro in typical WCW fashion. The match between Savage and Hogan was booked with a no run-in stipulation, but of course there were a lot of run-ins. In the end, Bret the Hitman Hart helped Hulk Hogan capture the WCW title. During all of this feuding between Hogan, Savage and Nash, the other nWo members would soon have a decision to make. Do they side with Hulk Hogan or do they side with Nash and Savage? Kevin Nash has since said that the nWo was split because he and Hogan had legitimate heat with each other backstage and the pair didn't want to work with each other anymore, mainly due to creative differences. Eric Bischoff, however, has said that the nWo needed to split due to having too many members. WCW Thunder was originally planned to be a straight WCW show and Monday Nitro was going to be an nWo exclusive show. However, plans changed after the abysmal nWo Nitro episode that did air in place of a traditional WCW Nitro show was a complete failure. On top of this, the nWo themed sold out pay-per-view also didn't draw the kind of numbers Bischoff had hoped. Whatever story you care to believe, the nWo was indeed going to split, which is actually quite telling of the state that the nWo managed to get itself into. On the May 4th episode of Nitro, Nash, Savage and Konnan appeared wearing black shirts with a red nWo logo. They called themselves the nWo Wolfpack, and soon they were joined by Curt Hennig, Rick Rude, Dusty Rhodes and Miss Elizabeth. This new branch of the nWo would work as babyfaces, while Hogan's side still worked as bad guys, wearing the classic black and white nWo colours. Hogan's side would be renamed nWo Hollywood and would feature Eric Bischoff, Brian Adams, Scott Norton, Vincent and The Disciple. Oddly, Bret Hart would not align himself officially with nWo Hollywood, but was named as the recruiter for the black and white heels. Scott Hall had been out with an injury, but due to return at May's Slamboree pay-per-view. The obvious assumption was that Scott Hall was joining the red and black Wolfpack, and he and Nash were scheduled to defend the WCW tag titles against Sting and the Giant. The Giant joined nWo Hollywood shortly before Slamboree, but also remained loyal to the Stinger. That said, the Giant was the first person to suggest to Sting that he needs to choose an alliance among the nWo factions and WCW. At Slamboree, Hall made his return to WCW in the colours of the Wolfpack as he teamed with Kevin Nash. During the match, however, Hall turned on his long-serving outsider tag partner by hitting him with the title belt, which gave the win to Sting and the Giant. The next night on Nitro, Hall was introduced as the newest member of nWo Hollywood. Lex Luger would join the Wolfpack and urge his friend Sting to do the same on the May 25th edition of Nitro in 1998. At the same time though, nWo Hollywood were also trying to secure the services of Sting. Sting revealed his decision on the following week's Nitro, where we all thought Sting had done the unthinkable and joined forces with Hulk Hogan, only to rip off the black and white nWo shirt he was wearing to reveal a red and black one underneath. Sting was now officially a member of the nWo Wolfpack, and he would replace his black and white attire and face paint to the red and black. This would probably be a good time to talk about the image of the Wolfpack along with the theme music. The Wolfpack came out to a hip hop song with lyrics such as "Don't turn your back on the Wolfpack, you might wind up in a body bag." It was a cool song for sure. The nWo members also acted like wannabe gangster rappers, wearing loose fitting clothes, bopping their heads as they walked to the ring and using the Wolfpack or the click hand gesture like a gang sign. Now bear with me here, but looking at the main demographic of the viewers who enjoy this channel, I can tell that half of you guys watching would have been in your late teens or early into adulthood when the nWo Wolfpack were in full swing, just like myself. So for a lot of us guys, the Wolfpack style and gimmick was pretty acceptable back in the day. But man, looking back at the Wolfpack these days it's hard to put into words. The sight of Lex Luger and Kevin Nash trying to show their street cred in later life is kinda like watching that embarrassing drunk uncle at the party. For its time though, nWo Wolfpack was popular, no doubt about that. Just watch some old Nitros and you can see how over they were. But looking back now, it also definitely hasn't aged that well at all. The music is still cool, the red and black logo is still cool. But honestly, go back and watch some Wolfpack promos these days. Still destroys a Baron Corbin promo though, but anyway, let's move on. Curt Hennig and Rick Rude would soon defect the nWo Hollywood, leaving the Wolfpack a few members down at the Great American Bash. On the same night, Sting won the WCW tag titles and chose Nash as his tag partner. The two would go on to defend the titles. Over on the nWo Hollywood side, Hogan would drop the WCW title to rising star Goldberg on a historic edition of Monday Nitro. The Hulkster would then involve himself in celebrity matches, including the likes of Dennis Rodman, Karl Malone and Jay Leno. Nash continued to feud with his old buddy Scott Hall. Hall and the Giant got a tag title shot at Sting and Nash on the July 20th episode of Nitro, which Hall and the Giant won after interference from nWo black and white recruiter Bret Hart. The Nash vs Hall feud came to an end at Halloween Havoc when Nash walked out of the ring and Hall got a count-out win. Nash stated that he didn't want to fight his old friend and he wanted the pair to become buddies again. This was on the same night that Hogan faced the Warrior in one of the most brutally bad matches to ever grace a wrestling ring. Many people forget though that Bret Hart also defeated nWo Wolfpack member Sting on this same night. Nash would go on to win the 60-man World War III match to secure himself a title shot against Goldberg. Meanwhile, at the World War III pay-per-view, Scott Hall would get kicked out of nWo Hollywood. Hulk Hogan soon announced his retirement from pro wrestling, and Scott Steiner became the leader of the black and white nWo. At Starrcade, Kevin Nash ended Goldberg's undefeated streak and won the WCW Championship when his old friend Scott Hall tased Goldberg, which Nash apparently didn't notice. So there is a lot more to say here about Kevin Nash ending Goldberg's streak and booking himself into this position, but we won't talk about that for now. On the first Nitro of 1999, Goldberg had been scheduled to get his rematch against Kevin Nash for the WCW Championship. He ended up getting arrested, and instead Kevin Nash challenged the returning Hulk Hogan while putting the title on the line. What would happen next is well known, the infamous finger poke of doom, where Kevin Nash lay down for Hogan to get the win and the title. Not only did this turn people away from WCW TV shows, but it also pretty much put an end to anything unique about nWo Wolfpack. It was now the same old nWo once again, no matter what way WCW or Eric Bischoff tried to spin it. Sure, the new nWo Elite would continue to wear the red and black, but it was just the same tired old stuff that we already saw. Sting and Randy Savage were gone from WCW during this time, and they would never return under the nWo banner again. Hogan, Hall, Kevin Nash, Scott Steiner, Lex Luger, Konnan, Buff Bagwell, Eric Bischoff and Miss Elizabeth were part of the new nWo Elite, while undercard wrestlers Vincent, Brian Adams, Curt Hennig, The Giant and Horace Hogan, along with eventual leader Stevie Ray, would be renamed as the nWo B-Team. Very telling that Hogan and Nash didn't really care much to be associated with these undercard guys anymore. The nWo Elite would get ravaged with injuries, and while minor new members were added such as Disco Inferno and David Flair, the whole nWo angle was now pretty much dead in the water, as WCW kept trying to throw stuff at the wall just to see what would stick. By the summer of '99, the nWo had done everything but totally collapse, but a return occurred at the very end of the year when nWo 2000 became a thing. It was short-lived, but it was still a thing.